Chapter 27. Sacrifice. Inanna lay in her dark cell, listening to the drip of water that tormented her sleepless mind. She had no grasp of time, only an unrelenting awareness of what she had lost and the choices that brought her to this moment. Footsteps approached, echoing through the corridor. Inanna rolled over, straining to see who stood beyond the bars. "Sister, you have seen better days," Ereshkigal remarked, holding a torch aloft. Its flame revealed the harsh lines of Inanna's tired face. Inanna rose unsteadily from the floor. The chains rattled at her side. "My sister died years ago. I mourned her, but you are not her." Ereshkigal exhaled a faint sigh. "I wish this wasn't the way it had to be. If only you'd stayed away. Foolish to try and stop me. I will always be smarter than you, Inanna. You cannot outsmart the universe." Inanna's gaze hardened. "What are you going to do with me?" Ereshkigal paused. She assessed her sister's battered form. "Your judgment is at hand." Inanna let out a low breath. "Good. Locked in here. There's nothing more I could have done anyway." Ereshkigal gave a curt nod to the guards behind her. "Farewell, sister," she said, her voice lacking any hint of sympathy as she turned away. The cell door creaked open, and 2 guards seized Inanna, dragging her out. They marched her up several flights of stairs until they reached the palace's ground level, a hallway Inanna now knew too well. Slivers of daylight penetrated through narrow openings in the stone, momentarily overwhelming her sight. Her body had adapted to the darkness of her cell. A set of large doors lay ahead, guarded by Neanderthal sentries. At Inanna's approach, they swung open, releasing a cacophony of angry shouts and jeers from beyond. Sunlight seared her eyes. She blinked hard, allowing the guards to pull her forward. Outside in the courtyard, a mass of Neanderthal warriors stretched along its perimeter, a churning sea of hatred and rage directed straight at her. It looked like thousands had gathered. Their roars and chanting battered her senses as she was led to a colossal slab of stone set on a raised platform at the far side. Her captors forced her up a series of steps leading to the top. Glancing back, Inanna beheld the crowd below her, a roiling ocean of furious faces. Ahead, beyond the city's walls, she glimpsed an even larger throng of Neanderthals. She had never witnessed a gathering of this magnitude. Fear and awe warred in her chest. As she climbed the last steps of the monumental structure, some kind of podium or altar, she saw Enkidu, Jark, and Ereshkigal, joined by several guards in distinctive attire. Inanna fixed her gaze on Ereshkigal. Words were bitter on her tongue. "So, this is how it ends? My people will know what you did, sister. You think this will bring balance? It'll only spark war. I am Nin of Sumer." Ereshkigal smiled coldly. "Balance is rarely peaceful, Inanna. You defied the natural order, and the consequences are plain." She gestured to the raging crowd below, who surged and clamoured for Inanna's blood. "I didn't defy anything but you," Inanna shot back. Though her voice was steady, her eyes darted anxiously to Enkidu, who remained silent. Jark stepped in, dwarfing them both with his imposing bulk. "Look around, Nin. I have summoned every Neanderthal to Gornia Shuria together. We'll head south into your lands. You think any human force can stop us? We do this to survive. When the world ends, no future generation of Neanderthals will have to share it with your flawed kind." Inanna clenched her fists. She was mute with anguish. Ja'ak turned to Enkidu, a sneer curling his lip. "And you, traitor, son of the Neanderthals, your betrayal cost us warriors, devastated our lands, and undermined our strength. You shall pay for that." Enkidu said nothing. Shame weighed in his eyes. Jark looked to Inanna again, ignoring her attempts to protest. "You can't do this," she pleaded, her voice cracked. Enkidu acted because it was right. Murdering him won't bring balance, it's simply more blood. Ereshkigal's glare pinned Inanna. This isn't about revenge, it's about restoring a broken world. It's the only way. Enkidu finally spoke, his voice resigned. I know what I've done. I accept my fate. He cast a sidelong look at Inanna. No other choice, Nin. For my people, it must be so. Tears threatened. This isn't balance. This is slaughter. You're a tool they're using to send a message. Ereshkigal's tone carried no mercy. He chose his path as you did. Jark lifted a commanding hand toward the crowd, quieting their clamour. The traitor's fate is sealed, he declared. He dies for his crimes against us. Guards rushed in, yanking Enkidu forward. He locked eyes with Inanna. Sorrow mingled with a strange serenity. I'm sorry, Nin. My path ends here. Her tears spilled over as she watched the guards drag him to a wooden altar. A cross adorned in symbolic Neanderthal totems marked his direction. The crowd roared approval, stomping and chanting for blood. Inanna shut her eyes. She winced, wishing she could shut out the sight. A traitor's death, Jack announced. 5 piercings. What does that mean? Inanna croaked. Ereshkigal replied flatly, The same awaits you. A short blade stabbed deep into Enkidu's thigh, nailing flesh to wood. The second plunged into his other leg. Inanna recoiled, shouting, Just kill him! End it quickly! No mercy came. A third blade punctured Enkidu's abdomen, and 2 more pinned his hands. The savage crowd cheered with each thrust, revelling in the gruesome spectacle. Inanna looked on. Horror and despair swirled behind her eyes. Tears slid freely down her cheeks. Inanna collapsed to her knees as Enkidu's body slumped. Tears spilled unchecked down her cheeks. Ereshkigal approached. A torchlight revealed a face set in grim determination, even as a flicker of sorrow momentarily softened her gaze. There are always sacrifices, sister, Ereshkigal whispered. Always. Still gazing at Enkidu, pale and dying, Inanna lifted her head. Her voice was raw with defiance. Kill me and be done with it, then. I'll never submit to your twisted view of balance. Ereshkigal nodded to the guards. You'll have your wish. Your death won't be swift, and it won't be quiet. The people need a lesson in the cost of resistance. The guards hauled Inanna to her feet and dragged her toward the altar. The crowd's roar washed over her, a chaotic multitude craving her end. She was pressed against a second wooden cross and bound in place. Drawing a trembling breath, Inanna glared at Ereshkigal. You may take my life, but you cannot control what's coming. You think you're in charge here. You're a pawn in forces much larger than you can grasp. Ereshkigal's tone remained cold, though sorrow edged it beneath the surface. Maybe I am, but for now, this is the only path left to us. Farewell, sister. I'll be sure our parents hear of your final stand. Soon they'll face their own. She turned away as the crowd's vicious chant soared higher. A brutal iron blade was driven through Inanna's left leg, sending a jolt of agony up her spine. Then came a second dagger, pinning her other leg. Inanna tried focusing on Enkidu, who hung nearby, as the third blade sank into her abdomen. She felt her breath hitch in shock. 2 more dagger points pinned each of her hands against the wood, locking her in torment. A sick cheer rippled through the horde, hungry for suffering. Jack stood at the heart of the podium. His intimidating presence controlled the atmosphere. He shouted in Neanderthal tongue, and though Inanna couldn't grasp the words, she forced herself to pay attention, anything to distract from her agony. Jack gestured forcefully. She deduced he was addressing the crowd with declarations of victory. He hurled challenges to the south, warning of the unstoppable mass of Neanderthals marching under his banner. He promised they would inherit the earth after Cataclysm, vowing humanity would not. The frenzied crowd bellowed agreement, drumming and chanting reverberating through the city's stone canyons. The Cataclysm was the perfect call to action, an ideal way to conquer a dying world. Finished, Jack descended the podium, flanked by loyal warriors. The guards too departed, evidently finished with inflicting punishment upon Inanna and Enkidu. Ereshkigal was last to leave, casting one final glance at Inanna before slipping into the sea of soldiers. Now the city quieted. In the distant open square, the thunderous steps and raucous chants of an enormous army moved out from Gornyashoria's gates. Snow dusted the landscape, revealing an endless migration of mammoths, siege engines, and countless Neanderthal warriors marching southward in a single unbroken tide. For them, this was the path to survival. For Inanna, it was a fatal betrayal of all she'd fought for. Shivering in the numbing cold, Inanna's consciousness ebbed. She looked away from the crimson-stained dagger in her stomach, turning her gaze to Enkidu, pinned in equal torment. She felt the world darkening, and a final lullaby of sorrow draped her senses. Her grandmother's old saying ghosted through her mind: "Death isn't the end. Death is only another beginning." Holding that thought, she closed her eyes, letting the frigid hush claim her. Darkness followed,